Welcome to the Grace Reformed Baptist Church podcast. We haven't actually come up with a title yet, but this is episode number 1. We're actually going to be filming 2 episodes today. So episode number 1, we're just going to do some introductions, tell you a little bit about ourselves. I am Josh Summer. This is Dr. Pastor Richard Barcelos of Grace Reformed Baptist Church, currently located in Lancaster, California. And so it's just going to be a little survey of us and of the church. And then in the following episode, we're going to begin kind of digging into the name of our church. Why is it Grace Reformed Baptist Church? And so we're just going to take a look kind of at each of those words in the name of our church. So, Pastor Barcelos, if you want to start us off, kind of who are you? How long have you been pastoring GRBC here in Lancaster? What's your story, your background?
Yeah. 1961 is when I came out of my mother's womb. So that makes me 63 years old. I was born in Central California, Fresno, raised on the west side of Fresno County on a farm with 3 brothers, 2 older, 1 younger. Went to junior college up there. It was called Reedley College at the time. Then went to Fresno State, graduated in 1983. And then I got saved. I was raised Roman Catholic, so I went to Mass every Sunday until I was probably about 14 or 15, served as an altar boy. Somebody that I grew up with and went to Mass every Sunday along with me asked me a few years ago, was there anything good about your Roman Catholic upbringing? I said, you know what? I had this reverence for church buildings because you couldn't chew gum and you couldn't talk, and if you did, you got in big trouble. So after college, I got exposed to a Protestant version of Christianity through a friend. As a matter of fact, some people know my friend's daughter, Megan Basham, is actually the daughter of the man who gave me a Protestant version of the gospel, invited me to church, and so I went up in Madera, California, and started. He said, you need to get under the word. I had no idea what that meant. What does that mean? He says, you need to go to church and hear preaching. So I did in 1984, early 1984, and was thoroughly under conviction for about 3 months. And then at some point in April, I remember the month, I remember the week. I think it was the 3rd week in April of 1984. I understood the gospel and cried out to the Lord for forgiveness. And, you know, Megan's father gave me got me a Bible and said, go to church early, go to all services, stay late. So I did. I had already been doing that. And I don't know, what was it, 1986, I got married. I met my wife there. Went to seminary, graduated master's seminary in 1989. I was a part of the first full 3-year class there. And then I planted a church here in the Antelope Valley and pastored there for 15 and a half years. And then for some reason or other, thought it best to move to Kentucky primarily to finish a dissertation I was working on. Well, I hadn't been working on it. I was taking the post-grad courses for it. But I was going to help a seminary get established. I was serving on the board, and so I moved there for 5 years, and 3 years later, I think I finished my dissertation. I was an elder there at a church there for 2 years, and then just, you know, you can take the kid out of California, but you can't take California out of the kid. And so I thought, you know what, I'm going back. It's home. I just like the diversity. Geographically and culturally, and the food's way better. Sorry. And it's not humid.
No.
So like it was there. So I just started contacting a couple friends I had, and one of them's a deacon now, Mario, and just told him possibility of moving back in the area. It's a large area, you know, there's almost 500,000 people up here. I think there's over 300,000 at least, and trying to maybe start a church, and got a few people together. And so for 12 years, is it 12?
I think 13.
It was 2012 when we constituted, as a church. So I think it's like February or March. So we're 13 years ago. I've been pastoring this church for 13 years now. Yeah. So that makes me 43. 20 years ago.
Yeah. Old guys
rule. Yeah.
Yeah.
And young guys drool.
Yeah. That's true.
That's me. So I've been the pastor there from the beginning. We started in our house. We had a morning service and an evening service, and then we outgrew our home in about 6 months. We were all excited, going, wow, we grew fast. And then we went to a hotel and stopped growing. That didn't help. And then COVID hit, and they wouldn't let us meet at the hotel. And we finally found the place we're meeting at in Lancaster. I don't know. We've been there a couple of years at least, 2 or 3 years. I'm not sure. But so that's enough about me. I'm sick and tired of hearing about me. Josh is the newest male member of our church, and your wife is the newest female member of our church. Your wife's normal. She's from Southern California originally.
Yeah.
You're not.
No.
You're from Missouri?
Joplin, Missouri.
Joplin. I drove through Joplin right after the...
Yeah.
Yeah, that was
massive.
So tell us about you, and include the fact that you are a former United States Marine.
Yeah.
Thank you for your service.
I appreciate that. I grew up Lutheran. I guess I'll just go all the way back.
Yeah. You're not going to go back to 1960.
Not going to go back to 1960.
Anything.
What? 1860?
Joshua, hurry up.
1990. I almost said 2000. That'd be bad.
Yeah.
Be way too young for this.
Yeah.
1990, born Joplin, Missouri, raised Joplin, Missouri until I was about 19, and that's when I took off and went to the Marine Corps. But kind of going back before that, was raised Lutheran, conservative Lutheran, LCMS, Lutheran Church of Missouri Synod. I was confirmed at the age of 14. Lots of good things I can say about my religious upbringing. My family went to church, took me to church, made sure I went through confirmation, which involved a lot of catechesis, a lot of which was, solid, evangelical or gospel-centered stuff. Obviously, if you're familiar with Lutheranism at all, there is a sharp distinction between law and gospel, and
right.
So I had a good like of both, and I knew that Jesus came to save sinners. I didn't really take that very seriously, though. Yeah. Like most of us, when we first hear it when we're younger, we don't, goes in one ear and out the other, and it wasn't until the Marine Corps, Japan, was the context in which the Lord saved me, drew me to Himself, opened my eyes to see that it was either my sin or it was Christ and the salvation that He brings to sinners like me. And so it was at that moment that I believed and repented of my sins, and the rest is history, I guess. I don't know the week of the month like you do, but it was 2013, 14. It was right on the kind of straddled somewhere in between those years. It was December, January. I just knew it was around the holidays. We were out of the country, so it was nobody kept track of what day it was anyway. So
so you got married?
So then after that, I had already met my wife by that point, but we were not married yet. She was in a Roman Catholic background. I came up in a Lutheran background. We met as unbelievers. I was saved, and then about a year later, my wife now, who was then my girlfriend, was saved. And so in 2015, I proposed to her, asked her dad for her hand in marriage, proposed to her, and then we got married. That's kind of after I became a believer, I started to sense a call to the ministry. I didn't really know what that was. We'll talk a little bit more about what it means to be a Reformed Baptist, but in 2015, later on that year, we actually ended up finding the first Reformed Baptist church that we ever belonged to. It was then that I encountered the confession, had a couple of elders who, poured into my interest in ministry. It was there that I first preached, had an opportunity to preach, and And that was all in Southern California. That was all in San Diego. And then we moved back to the Midwest, and I was there to finish up my undergrad degree at Midwestern Baptist Theological Seminary, or Spurgeon College, that is a part of that institution. And we just kind of made our home there. I took the call to ministry at Victory Baptist Church in 2019, and was there all the way up until February of this year, when we decided to move back to the West Coast, to be closer to my in-laws, and also to pursue ministry out here with this guy. So here at GRBC.
Yeah, don't mess it up.
Yeah.
Let me just back up, and then on my thing, because I forgot to say, I am married. I have been for 38 years. It'll be 39 years in July. We have 5 children and 6, I think, grandchildren, and 1 in the womb, due here pretty soon.
And so, your wife is a gem, because she puts up with you.
Well, it's one of the blessings that helps everyone else, and me too sometimes.
Yeah, that's the same.
I'd have to have a wife like her, otherwise I would not be in the ministry.
Yeah,
not for this long. There's just no way. But speaking of wives that really help their husbands, you got one of those too.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
Now back to you. So Josh and I met in 2015 at a conference in Southern California. You remember it more clearly than I do.
Yeah.
I don't know when it was. At some point, texting, emailing. I don't know when that happened, but we had a friendship. I'm old enough to be his father, by the way. Then you were a student of mine at some point.
Yeah.
And hopefully will be at International Reformed Baptist Seminary.
Yeah.
And you were pastoring, and I had some birthdays, like a lot of them.
Yeah.
And it came into last fall. This is how he got here, okay? It was last fall when I went to our deacons. I said, I'm 63, and I don't want to fall off the face of the earth one day and leave my church without leadership. We don't have any other elders right now. And I'm thinking more primarily the main preacher, because I do, of the members of our church, until Josh became a member, none of them had preached. It was just me. Yeah. So anytime I traveled, which I do, I teach elsewhere. I do conferences elsewhere. Matter of fact, I'm going to Utah. I'm going to Provo to do a conference this weekend. And Josh is going to preach for me.
Yeah.
But I thought, we got to get a plan. So I ran it by the deacons. They said, write it out. We wrote it out. And we were talking at the time, and I knew your desire to move back to the best coast. You got the least coast and the best coast. Yeah. Okay. So, and you lived right in the middle of it, in that swampy place called Missouri. So I ran, your name by the deacons, and they said, well, let's talk to them, or something like that. I don't know I think we might have talked first. And then you guys came out for Christmas, and you said, hey, we're going to be out for Christmas with the in-laws. Oh, you came to the pastor's conference first last fall and brought his wife.
Yep.
And
that sold it.
Yeah, well, I could tell you guys were doing really well.
Yeah.
The culture was good and all that stuff. So they came out for Christmas to see your in-laws in Anaheim, and came up to our place. We spent about 5, 6, 7 hours together with the deacon, Mario, and his wife. And then Eddie came late. Eddie, if you're watching, you came late that day.
Yeah.
It wasn't Jenny's fault.
I'll never forget it.
Yeah. But Eddie and Jenny brought their kids. Eddie's another deacon. So 2 deacons and the pastor and our families spent some time with you walking around the Vasquez Rocks, and then we ate some Mexican food, and then went to our house, and we had a really good time. I mean, we were pinching ourselves afterwards. I called the guys how to go. They said, didn't think it'd go better. It's so easy to talk to both of you. And that just kind of sped the process up to January. I did a crazy thing. This is one of the boldest things I've done in terms of leading my church in a certain direction, other than just preaching to them every week.
Yeah.
Because you ask my people, what does Pastor Barcelos do? And they'll say, Well, he basically preaches to us or preaches to somebody else when he travels. You can predict what he's going to do. You know, I'm not the guy that's going to go out there and go, church, we got to do this next week, and then the next week. But I just make it to church on the Lord's Day. It's hard enough to do that. It's a safe environment. We do the same thing every week. We have a liturgy. We'll talk about the liturgy later. So anyway, at some point, I brought this to the deacons again, and I said, we got to get him out here. I had this plan. 6, 8, 10 years, however long it takes to get you educated, get you into the hearts of our people, get you into the eldership, God willing, get you into the pulpit, which he's already been in the pulpit because we identified him really early as a gifted brother because of your past, and people from our church started to listen to your sermons and stuff like that. So we flew him and his wife, you and your wife out, and the kids. That was great. Yeah. Something happened. The day after you preached, you got a phone call. No, it wasn't even the day after you preached. You hadn't even preached.
Yeah. No, it wasn't. I hadn't even preached.
Tell us about that phone call. This is why we're at this studio.
Yeah. So before I even visited out here, Christy and I had our house on the market because we knew that we were headed west, and the market was slow where we were, and so. We got an offer on our house. It was a great offer. I thought, I can't pass it up, but I don't really know what we're going to do. So it was really just trusting in the providence of God at that point. We accepted the offer. And then the next day, we get an email. I think the email turned into a phone call from some regular attenders at GRBC here at our church. And the woman, dear woman, let me know that they were moving to be closer to their kids. Funnily enough, they were moving to where we were moving from, about 15 minutes away.
Yeah.
And so, but she told me, hey, we're not looking to sell our property in California anytime soon. So, we'd like to ask, if you'd be interested in staying there. And I thought, well, that's incredibly gracious. How much is rent? Don't worry about it. And so that's where we are, actually. We're in one of the rooms of that house that sits on 80 acres in the high desert, north of town. And Edwards Air Force Base is basically our backyard. So we get the sonic booms and the cool airplanes that fly over all the time.
Yeah. It all happened so fast. That came as a result of our church having a meeting about this, and our church actually voted on whether or not to fly your family out. Yeah. And then you came out 2 weeks later or whatever it was, spent about 4 or 5 days with us. And we had meetings at people's house, one on a Friday night, one on a Saturday night. After you preached twice on the Lord's Day, we opened up our home and had a lot of people into the evening. You got to stay up near Devil's Punch Bowl for a couple nights, I think.
Yeah,
what is it?
Beautiful place.
Yeah, and then got to be up in Tehachapi for a few days, and then got to spend some extra time with your in-laws, and it was just a well-received trip. 2 weeks later, you were here.
Yeah,
yeah. It was like
because of this place. Yeah, only because of the generosity of the owners of this property. So we have a rental agreement that says $0 a month. And just incredible. We're still thanking the Lord for that.
So that's us. We're going to transition to talk about the church, but we might be done with this.
Yeah, well, I mean,
don't want to go too long.
You've got all the background. Now we're at the stage where we can talk about this project, this podcast. Why are we doing this podcast? I've had another podcast for a number of years called The Baptist Broadcast. This is not that. That's still a separate project with its own purpose. Gets kind of more into the weeds of theology.
In either you or we might add to it.
And we'll add to it as we can. It's always better with a guest, really. I mean, otherwise it's just, as Steve Meister would say, it's just me talking to a wall.
Yeah.
Although he can't say that anymore, because I if I do another episode by myself, I'll be sitting in this chair talking to the camera instead of the wall.
Okay.
So yeah, this podcast. What is it? I mean, what are we doing?
Yeah. Our vision for this podcast is an outreach of our church just to get the news that we exist and what we're all about to the Antelope Valley. So we're not shooting for the other side of the world. We want people in the Antelope Valley to know about Grace Reformed Baptist Church, currently meeting in Lancaster. I want you to know about we have a website.
We do have a website.
I don't even know what it is.
grbcav.org.
There it is, grbcav.org. We have a Twitter or an X account.
Yeah.
We got a Facebook account. We have all our sermons are up on Sermon Audio.
Yeah.
And we're slowly going to be doing some little teaching videos, 15, 20 minutes. We did a couple last fall. Josh is cleaning them up and getting them available. But our goal for this is just to get out Antelope Valley, get the news out to the Antelope Valley people, and we got some other things we'd like to do in the future. We probably won't say anything about that yet, but I want people my age to hear me. I want people your age to hear you, and everyone in between.
Yeah.
Veterans, we realize there's a lot of veterans out here. Older veterans, younger veterans, probably a lot of older ones actually, and we want those kind of guys to come to our church, man. These warriors, and to hear the gospel, and to grow in grace and knowledge together. And we have a good community of saints that love each other, and we try to be hospitable. Open up our homes, and you just opened up your home recently to.
Yeah, that's one of the things I was going to make note of here, is that I think as far as hospitality and the people living life together is one of the strengths of our church. And just, it seems like there's something going on all the, people are inviting people to do stuff all the time. So, I mean, there's just it's a tight-knit, group that loves the Lord.
Is it so tight-knit that it's hard to...
Actually, no.
Hard to get in?
No, because I've been here for how long? Just over a month, and pretty involved already.
Yeah,
been received with open arms.
Yeah, well, it's because of Christy.
Yeah.
And people feel sorry for her. That's why they do that. But no, well, it's important because some churches that are close knit, it's like us four.
It's hard to get in. Yeah,
the door. There's a culture that's impenetrable and
clicky.
Yeah, we had this person coming to our church for a while, and I said he wanted to get baptized and join the church. And I said, when you started coming, what was it like? Why did you keep coming? And he says, I've never been loved like this.
Yeah.
And as a pastor, I felt like giving him $50. Say that again. I didn't pay him to say that. He just said it with a trembling lips, and I was so happy because one of the badges of Christian discipleship is love.
Yeah.
Specifically love, brotherly love, love for fellow Christians. And nobody gets saved, watching Christians love each other.
Right.
But it does pique interest, and it did in me. When I was an unbeliever, I came to a church, and I thought, I've said this in a sermon recently, the nerds and the jocks were all together.
Yeah.
Because I came out of a college thing where no nerds and what we thought were nerds and jocks and Aggies were all in their own subcultures, But this was all together, and we try to do that. We try to be a church like that, and
that's what just astounds me about Christianity is really that I've been all over the world. You've been all over the world, and you realize that God's people you can find God's people almost everywhere, and to have on a small scale, a church that reflects that. There's people in our church from a bunch of different backgrounds, different careers, different ages, different interests, but they're
different social status.
Yeah, but they're brought together by one common Lord.
Yeah, I think one thing that helps. Is we have meals together.
Yeah.
At least twice a month. Everybody brings food, and we just stay there the whole time, eat, and then have our second service. The times we don't have a meal, we have a break and then a second service. We have the Lord's Supper. By the way, we have the Lord's Supper weekly. Yeah. But those meals have been really helpful in kind of just, cementing our relationships with each other. And it's great to see the ladies serving, and men cook too, and bring their, it's almost like competition sometimes. Yeah. My favorite's Mexican food. I don't know if we're
Yeah.
gonna have, are you guys gonna have Mexican food this Lord's Day? I don't know.
I don't know. I hope so.
I hope not, but
I hope so.
because that means I'll miss it.
I hope so.
But I think those kind of things are helpful, creating a distinctly churchly and Christian
Yeah.
culture where you know each other, you're developing your friendships, and then of course the hospitality in the people's homes. We have a few people that do really, really well at it, and I've tried to be careful as a pastor. You can't impose one family's ability to be hospitable on other because everybody's different. you
Yeah.
know? Like I grew up with an Italian mother. We had people over our house a lot, and my dad could call my mom and say, "Hey, we got some salesmen over here. We need something to eat in 35 minutes." And
Yeah.
my mom would say, "Okay,"
Yeah.
and just boom.
Yeah.
And
It's just a readiness.
not everybody can do it, but when you have a church that has people that do it and do it well, it really binds your hearts together.
Yeah.
And it's great for the kids too to see that.
See that amongst their
Yeah.
their parents and so to have the and we'll talk more about this as we go on with future episodes, but to have the combination of rich doctrine on the one hand and also a vibrant practical life lived together, where that doctrine of Christ shines through the saints
Yes.
is I think I think most churches aspire to that and want, and we certainly do too, and so it's
I have found this over the years when people come visit, Christian people, people that have been in churches for a while and have some experience. At first, it's kind of a culture shock,
yeah.
We'll talk about some of those things, and why. It shouldn't be a culture shock. It's
Right.
not historically,
Right.
but when they stay long enough just to hear the doctrine and then to watch it, watch it in practice. I'm thinking of a couple many years ago that did this, and their church background was nothing like what we were providing.
Yeah.
And they just start, I don't know, they're a few weeks in, and they're just eating everything up. Where have
Yeah.
you been all my life? This is what I've been, I didn't know what I was missing. And
Right.
they joined the church, and one of them's with the Lord, one of the persons, but the other one's still a member.
Yeah.
And thriving.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's good. Christian orthodoxy, right doctrine, should, if it's being possessed properly, produce right practice.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I think we're going to wrap this one up for now, just to kind of give a kind of a direction of where we're going. In the next episode that I hope you'll join us for, we're going to talk about our church name, Grace Reformed Baptist Church, and we're just going to kind of go through each of those components of our name, GRBC, Grace Reformed Baptist Church. And, we're talking about a lot of the, what our church looks like, what you can expect if you visit. But we're going to have an opportunity to really discuss some of the doctrinal underpinnings, the doctrinal foundations under our life as a church. So hopefully you stay tuned and join us for the next episode. God bless.